Hey there, welcome to the channel. This is Cafeticus, and today's video will showcase a game in the Jervis, the Tier 7 Royal Navy destroyer. We're top tier in this game on Haven, and since I've spawned southwest, it looks like I'll be focusing my efforts on the B-cap. There is also a carrier and 2 radar cruisers on the enemy team, so I'll have my work cut out for me. Still, let's see what we can do. As always, let's talk a bit about the ship while we're moving into position. We'll start with the firepower of the Jervis. It has 6 120mm guns in 3 double turrets. These guns have a great reach of 12.1 kilometers, but these shells do get rather flighty at range, even more so than the USN destroyer guns. So, unless you're shooting at stationary or slow targets, it does get rather difficult to hit anything at max ranges. These shells have a max damage of 2100 for an AP Citadel and 1700 for HE, with an 8% base chance to start fires. Given that these guns fire every 5 seconds, you've got some decent DPM and good fire starting capabilities compared to other Tech Tree destroyers at this tier. The turret traverse isn't bad, and adding that to the 360-degree rear turret means you can acquire targets relatively quickly while facing forward. In terms of torpedoes, the Jervis mounts 2 launchers with 5 tubes per launcher. These hit pretty hard, doing up to 15.7k per torpedo. Also, as is typical of the Royal Navy, you can launch your torpedoes individually or in a salvo. So you could theoretically kill 10 low health ships or smash just about any ship you'll meet with a full salvo. That is, unless you derp all of them into the torpedo belt of a Musashi. The problem though is that these torpedoes take forever to load at 120 seconds. In addition, they only reach out to 7 kilometers, which isn't great, especially if you get up-tiered and run into radar cruisers who will get you spotted long before you are even able to launch your torpedoes. So, overall, the ship has some decent firepower, but with some limitations. Concealment-wise, the Jervis has a minimum surface detection range of 6.4 kilometers, but being at Tier 7, it suffers from the typical concealment disadvantage of destroyers at this tier. The Tier 5 and 6 ships that you'll meet typically have better concealment than the Jervis due to the increasing detectability range for destroyers as you tier up. On the other hand, Tier 8 and 9 destroyers can mount the concealment mod and they will outspot you as well. But at the least, the Jervis has ways to work around that, as we'll talk about in a little bit. Also, the Jervis's 14.3k HP pool is on the lower end of the spectrum at Tier 7. But here's where we talk about the couple of tricks that can help the Jervis get out of trouble. Specifically, the ship comes equipped with 6 charges of quick reloading smoke screens. This means that you can use these smokes to disengage when things get rough, or to hide from plane scouting without feeling like you've got to save them for key moments. Pair that with the long duration but short ranged hydro, and you should be able to easily avoid any unfortunate brown alert moments with enemy torpedoes. Unfortunately, the ship does not have access to an engine boost consumable, so you're stuck with the 36 knots base top speed. Nevertheless, the Jervis is maneuverable with the Royal Navy improved acceleration and a 590-meter turning circle on a base 3.5-second rudder shift. Anyway, let's get back to the game and see how she performs as we put that enemy Akatsuki out of his misery. I did pop my smokescreen here since I knew the Indianapolis has used its radar, and I was hoping to avoid any plane spotting while I tried to pick up the B-cap. The Atlanta should be just out of radar range, and I also turned off my AA guns to avoid giving away my position to those rocket planes that were circling above me. The smokes only last 40 seconds though, but I took advantage of them to turn my ship around and get ready to run like a chicken because most of my team is way out east, while the enemy ships are coming at me from the west. so I'm very much alone here without support, and that's not where I want to be right now. It seems though that the Atlanta has pushed up and his radar spots me, but fortunately I was able to cap just before his shells landed. Still, I don't really want to engage an Atlanta and a Chungking in a close range gunfight, so I put pedal to the metal and run away. It also looks like the CV is back for more, so yeah, I've overstayed my welcome, and I have to feel bad for this Duke of York who's come back here, but I just can't stick around. I really should have turned my AA back on here as well, but it takes me a while to remember in the heat of the moment. Your air detection is more than your AA range in the Jervis anyway, so it really doesn't matter if you leave it on, unless you're trying to hide in smoke like I did earlier. The carrier is actually going for me here, um, but we were able to easily avoid the torpedo, so no harm, no foul. But the question is, what do I do now? It looks like my team have successfully picked up the C cap, so I'm thinking maybe I can just delay the enemies on B for as long as I can before I bail. So let's take a few puck shots at whatever I can see and let's see how that goes. I don't have a torpedo solution on the Scharnhorst on account of a big fat island, and the Atlanta is busy with our Duke of York. So I kind of waffle around here for a bit and end up getting too close to the enemy battleship as he clears the island. Oh well, I guess I'll just smoke up and start firing for a bit. I know that I can't stay here very long though, but I think I get a little bit too focused on trying to get my torpedoes off, and that's a bit of a misplay. I knew the chunking was headed out my way, so I really should have launched one salvo at the western edge of this island first, before backing up and launching another on the other side of the island where the Scharnhorst was headed. Given that we only have a 7-kilometer torpedo range, trying to hit the Scharnhorst is probably way too optimistic anyway, unless he decides to turn back and head directly east from where he was. So definitely a misplay in hindsight. But anyway, now that I've launched my torpedoes, I try to run as quickly as I can. But yeah, you've probably guessed it. I've timed my escape way too late, and the enemy chunking pops up in my face. And at the time I was thinking, yep, I'm dead. So I load my AP to try to do as much damage to him as I can before I get sunk. But it looks like the chunking is firing AP at me. So yeah, I do take a ton of damage, but in return I smack him for a whole lot more than he does to me, because he has a citadel and I don't. My smoke screen is also coming off cooldown, so I pop it to break contact. And that's where my Oklahoma friend comes to my rescue and finishes off that Pan-Asian cruiser. Hooray for having friends! So now, it's just the 3 enemy battleships left on this flank, which means it's time for me to get back into position to defend the B-cap and see if I can farm up some damage. And this is where the great range on the Jervis's guns come into play. I should be able to hit these slow battleships while maintaining a decent distance where their guns won't really be able to consistently hit me. Well, that's the plan anyway, as we start to open up on the Piotr Veliki. We get a nice fire on him while also picking up some defender ribbons. And there's also a New Mexico coming in from the west as well. It looks like the Piotr has used his DCP, so I really want to get a couple of perma fires on him. But I'm just not getting good fire RNG right now, which is unfortunate as the Jervis is usually really good at starting fires. But it looks like this time someone else beat me to it. Oh well, I guess I'll just split my fire between the Piotr to get some defense ribbons and this New Mexico to see if I can light him up as well. And as it turns out, I do get a fire on the New Mexico, which he immediately puts out. Well, that's nice. It just means that we'll have a chance to turn him into a moving barbecue. I do continue to split my fire for a bit here though, as I want to make sure that we defend the cap. And it does take some time for the New Mexico's DCP to run out anyway, before I can start to light him up again. Okay, It's been a few seconds, so we'll fire on the New Mexico just a bit, and then back to the Purter to keep him on his toes. But one thing I have to note here though, is that what I'm doing here is quite selfish as a destroyer, because I'm not providing any vision to my team. Instead, I'm playing more like a cruiser would, by firing from behind island cover. But in a sense, this works for the Jervis because it's really more of a gunboat in my mind. But the enemy battleships are on the run, so it's time for me to push up as well. I decide to push up behind the New Mexico instead of heading north along the 4-5 line, as this will force the New Mexico to pick between me and my friendly Oklahoma towards the east. If the New Mexico wants to shoot at me, he'll need to angle his turrets and or his ship, so that will take more time before he can acquire me as a target. And in the meanwhile, our barbecue has begun as we light a couple of permafires on that enemy battleship. Lesson in point on why you shouldn't immediately repair a single fire, especially in a battleship, as the New Mexico now has 3 fires going. But the enemy team seems to have clawed back into a game that was pretty secure just a few moments earlier. We're now even on ships, though we still have the cap and points advantage. So we've really got to start taking out some of the remaining enemy heavies as quickly as possible. And since I'm just sailing into range of that low health Piotr Veliki, I turned to see if I could help speed his demise. That is until my Oklahoma buddy literally blew him out of the water. Yeah, that jumping ship issue is still a thing. Well, I guess it's time to continue hounding this poor New Mexico. It looks like he was able to put out the fires with his DCP, so we've got to restart our grill all over again. And I'm still way too far back right now, that selfish destroyer captain that I am. The New Mexico isn't going to get away from me in a straight line chase, but he is trying to use island cover to block my shells. So I angle off to the right to make sure that I can keep my gun singing. And sure, it's generally not a big deal, but you can also see how the rear turret's 360-degree traverse means I can fire almost immediately without having to wait for the 18 seconds or so that it would normally take to track around. The New Mexico is also starting to look at me, so I've popped my smokescreen to go dark. And in all honesty, I could probably have kept on going, guns blazing, but I didn't want to risk it, as if he got a good self on me, he could delete me outright. And as it turns out, that's probably the right move, as he was firing HE, which missed. Anyway, we take out that poor New Mexico for our arsonist achievement. I mean, you've gotta feel sorry for him, as I think I lit him on fire 6 times, and there wasn't much he could do about it. Fire starting is definitely one of the strengths of the Jervis. Okay, so now that's over, we've just got to move up into a position where we can deal with the remaining enemy battleships that are holding out in A. We do get spotted by the carrier planes though, but it looks like he was going for our Oklahoma buddy behind me. My AA goes off, and surprisingly I even shoot down a plane, so hooray. Anyway, I started out shooting at the Nagato as we were sailing into range, but wait, there's an enemy carrier. So we pushed some shells into the Ryusho, and for a bit here I was considering going after the carrier. But considering that there are 2 enemy battleships keeping him company, I didn't think that it would have worked out so well for me. So instead, I pushed forward while using the island at E4 for some cover and getting ready to do some gunboaty things. The carrier planes have me spotted again, but that's not a big deal, as I will be smoking up once I get a bit closer to the island, and then I can Daka the Nagato in peace. As it turns out, the rocket planes do end up making a couple of drops on me, but they were way off base, so I'm perfectly fine. In any case, I snuggle up to this island, pop my smoke, and start to light a fire on that Nagato. I also launch my torpedoes just slightly ahead of the Nagato's path, as I'm expecting him to speed up once he realizes there's an annoying fly trying to burn him down. The Nagato repairs my first fire, but we're going to get another one started pretty quickly here. And as expected, The Nagato has engaged his engines and is pushing forward right into the path of my torpedoes. So sure, the Jervis's torpedoes can work. It just takes some effort and a bit of luck to get into the right range and position to launch them. And so we finish off the Nagato for our third kill of the game. But no rest for us, as the enemy Minakaze has decided to push in. And that's a fight that we should win easily. We fire several salvos at that Japanese destroyer to show him the error of his ways, but our CV takes him out just before we're able to do so. So, well done CV. And now, the game should be in the bag. I still want to get some damage done though, so I turn around to get into a position to fire on the Colorado. There's still a big chunk of HP left on that American battleship. Our torpedoes will never hit him, but we're in position to fire with our guns. We do have to aim for the superstructure though, or our shells will never pin. We finally get a couple of good salvos in, but the game ends as we take out on points, and that's a pity as I would have liked to do a lot more damage here. Oh well, let's take a look at the post-game results. Not really a very high damaging game, just shy of 95,000 with 3 kills and an arsonist achievement. Our base XP wasn't too bad though, 20 to 15, which was top of our team, and about 50% more than the next person. As you can imagine, most of the damage was from our guns, with 57,000, along with 35,000 in fires, most of which was on that enemy New Mexico. Also, our lone torpedo hit on the Nagato netted us a whopping 2,500 damage. Great. And for that, we made a bit over 278,000 credits, so it wasn't too bad of a game. For anyone interested, here are the equipment and captain skills I used for the ship. Main armaments mod 1, engine room protection, main battery mod 2, and steering gears. It's a Royal Navy destroyer with super acceleration, so you can't mount the propulsion mod anyway. For captain skills, I have grease the gears, priority target, last stand, superintendent, and concealment on good old Cap here. And that's because he's only got 13 captain points. Primarily, my thought was to get those guns on target as quickly as possible, though considering it's a 360-degree X turret, your mileage may vary. So, the Jervis in a nutshell. I think it's a kind of selfish gunboat slash mini cruiser to be honest. As it stands, Tier 7 destroyers are not my favorite for sure. And even though the Jervis has decent concealment for its tier, that only really matters if you're in an all Tier 7 game. And how often does that really happen? In addition, the limited torpedo range also feels like a hamstring on the ship. The guns are good though, so if you like gunboat destroyers, you'll probably enjoy the Jervis, as it pairs good guns with the added security of the smoke hydro combination. I just don't think that it's the ship for me personally. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you did, please do me a favor and hit the subscribe and like buttons below, as it helps me grow the channel. You can also click the bell icon to get notifications the next time I post videos. Also, if you're in the US, I hope you have a safe and peaceful Memorial Day weekend. Thank you for watching and take care.